Hi there, let's take a look at another huge energy shift that we have had in November over the last week, and that is Mercury moving to Sagittarius. So, Mercury is one way of looking at it is that it is the wind. Okay, so it represents our mind, our thought, our mentality. So, how everything comes in and out. Okay, communication, travel, our ability to learn and communicate. So the wind, thinking of how things move. It's our logic, it's our intellect, it's our nerves as well as our senses. It is the habits and patterns of our mind and how we process information. And it's also our preferred way to receive information. And from its placement in our chart, we can also see things like how we like to travel, how we organize our data, as well as seeing an idea of what sort of people we will best connect with. So, Mercury rules our third house of communication and our sixth house of health. So, third house of communication is representative of how we communicate. It is how we connect with others, our thinking patterns, our talking patterns. It's our online personas. It's our electronic devices. It's how we give and receive messages. And it is how we first learn to articulate our ideas into the world. So it's our early learning as well, and our curiosity and our perception. It's how we also connect with others. The sixth house of health is the house of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health, and the general condition of our body and our relationship to our body through those relationships with our mental health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, and our physical health. So, those self relationships are ruled by the sixth house of health. It's also how we react to adversity and where we can experience personal growth, as well as, you can see hints in your birth chart on what is your ideal career and where you could best be of service to others. Also, it shows how we can build daily habits, daily fitness, daily self care, and it's our idea of how we would best work with our diet and exercise programs and just our healing and wellness and duty in general. Okay. So, Mercury has been in deep, passionate, intense Scorpio. All right. Now, Scorpio is I empower energy, and it really asks us to purge current limitations, and it teaches us to progressively transmute pre existing limitations by understanding the psychological root cause of those limitations. So, by going into the depths of our shadow and understanding where the psychological patterns, where the mind patterns are, is how we can turn those limitations that we build around these deep fears and deep shadows, we can turn those into power. Okay, so that is what makes Scorpio the I empower energy, the investigator, the alchemist, the self transformation and secrets. Okay, because it finds our secrets, it helps us transmute, change them into power, so therefore becoming the alchemist from being the investigator. Okay, so while Mercury was in Scorpio, we really would have become more interested in keeping things to ourselves a little and in only communicating with people that we felt we had depth with. Okay, this would have helped us sort of throw out, death, birth, and rebirth, Scorpio, right? This transformation energy. So, in only wanting to communicate and be around people that we have a deep bond with, that we had a deep connection with, this would have helped us see what is valuable to us in connections, all right? And we would have also wanted to know these people's deep thoughts and fears and secrets and everything behind it, because we would have also felt the urge to share this with people we had deep connections with. And people that were not comfortable doing that with us would have very quickly become uninteresting, or, their energy wouldn't have felt right and we wouldn't have wanted to communicate with them. That is the nature of Scorpio. And, this energy, Mercury and Scorpio, helps us deepen our self exploration, and it really gives us access to a more profound understanding of ourselves, of others, and of the reality, because we can go into the shadows a little bit more easily. And this transit through Mercury transiting through Scorpio helps us kind of unveil mysteries about ourselves and others and reveal these taboos that are normally too uncomfortable to talk about, because it makes us want to name these unspoken things and really read into the shadows, the undercurrents of all of the situations, the investigator energy of Scorpio. So now we have moved into Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is I understand energy. It's that truth seeker energy and higher wisdom and adventure. And, it wants to know the true meaning of your life here. And it shows us our intuitive capacity has to be developed to truly assimilate the information that has been absorbed from the external environment. So we have Scorpio, that investigator energy. And then once we move into Sagittarius, we try and understand the information that we have found while we are investigating the shadows. So we try and assimilate that information into a way that it makes sense in our external environment, all right? So while Mercury is in Sagittarius, it's going to help us broaden our mind and really embrace new perspectives of reality that we've uncovered through this investigation into Scorpio. Now, Mercury is in Sagittarius until the 1st of December, but it will come back in because Mercury is going to go retrograde, okay? Hang in there, everybody who gets greatly affected by that. Myself, a Virgo stellium, yes, very much so. Okay. So Mercury in Sagittarius, it's going to help our willingness to adapt to change and to be able to stay open to these new perspectives, because Sagittarius is really that adventurous energy and it wants to learn. And so it enjoys the journey of learning, and it really does help us find new perspectives through that adventure and through wanting to have all of these experiences. So it sort of reflects this increase in our desire to learn and to explore while stimulating our curiosity and this desire to learn more about the world around us in the material, but also in the spiritual, okay? So it kind of will give us this more optimistic and positive way to how we communicate and learn. Whereas Scorpio kind of doesn't, it's a little bit more pessimistic, it's a little bit more dark. So this Sagittarius energy, as we start rolling into Sagittarius season, Mercury is the first planet going through that, and it's going to help bring a bit more optimism to how we are communicating. Now, there's going to be some aspects that are going to be very important, particularly to the Mercury retrograde story, okay? So Mercury will be squaring Saturn throughout the Mercury retrograde. So Saturn is a Neptune, squaring Saturn and Neptune, and both are in Pisces, okay? So Mercury Saturn square goes exact as soon as Mercury entered Sagittarius. So that was November 10. So this gives us an opportunity to observe, in what instances we are drawn to censor ourselves or silence ourselves, and where we might feel that we have no authority to express our opinions, and really try and explore the root of that, go on a little adventure with that, okay? And it's going to be useful for us to also notice how we might have the urge to police other people's language and how we might be silencing other people, and really be asking ourselves what's behind that. So because of the retrograde, this is going to be exact again on November 27, December 27, and January 9. So that's part of the Mercury retrograde story. So if you are taking notes, get your pen out and write these down, okay? So the energy that we've just experienced, so around that November 10, would have given us sort of a little preview of what we are going to be looking at. So if you do want some more advice on how and what this Mercury retrograde is pointing to, that is what I do the birth chart analysis readings for, because wherever Mercury sits in your houses and in your planets, that is where your story will be unfolding. And those are the places where you can best tap into the energy in order to use it to learn about yourself, all right? So Mercury starts telling its story with part 1, which is its pre-retrograde area, and this is the preview, All right, so we've had like this little idea, this little hint on around November 10, and then we get the part one, the preview, 25th of November until the 12th of December. So this will start bringing up these energies and situations and ideas, and being that it is a retrograde, it is asking us to do all the RE words, revise, revisit, okay? Look at these things again. So this is where people start seeing, relationships from the past showing up, situations from the past coming up, in order to revise them and see if there's anything we can take from it and learn, or whether it all needs to be thrown away, okay? So part one, 25th of November until the 12th of December. Part two, which is where we sort of get into the meat of the sandwich, we get really into the details. That'll be from the 13th of December until the 31st of December. And then we'll get into part three of Mercury Retrograde, which is the post-season cleanup, all right? And that is January 1st until the 9th. So that is why we will see November 27, December 27, and January 9. We will see this Saturn exacting its aspect with Mercury, and that will be a huge part of the story, okay? So the idea of this square aspect will be, often it comes with a lot of confusion, a lot of brain fog, okay? That is why the retrograde is actually a positive, because it slows these things down for us, because we are foggy, we are confused, things are up in the air, and there can be a lot of uncertainty due to this square aspect. So really be aware of, our own perceptions of self-doubt, where we are doubting ourselves. So a lot of people will feel that there'll be a lot of self-deception, a lot of self-doubt coming up around this square while we're in retrograde season. And it can help us if we are not affected by it in that way. It can actually help us be invested into defending ideas and ideals. Again, it can be in the negative, because we can get very obsessive and fanatical about it, because Neptune does also correspond with this state of being really ungrounded. It's the dreamer energy, it's the delusion energy. And it can make us very blinded by the illusion, by the dream, by the fantasy. So Mercury and that Neptune it aligns in order to help us acknowledge the difference between the belief and truth, between the delusion and the reality, illusion, reality, okay? And to sort of find what is subjectively true for us and what it is that we believe to be true. And then from there, seeing what is true in the reality and what is an absolute truth in the higher sense. So that Sagittarius energy investigates it really quite deeply on all of the levels. So my truth, the reality truth, what is an absolute truth, and what is a higher level of truth, okay? So Mercury also has a little play around with Mars, who will be finishing up in Sagittarius when they have a little dance together, and that will be on December 28th, so as part of part two of the Mercury Retrograde Story. And this conjunction will be an opportunity for us to look at how we are used to asserting ourselves, asserting our beliefs, asserting our ideas. And we're going to trying to notice if we are drawn to arrogance at all, okay? Or like really teaching and preaching our own truth, okay? In relation to this idea of my truth, absolute truth, higher truth, other people's truths, okay? This idea that more than one truth can exist at once is what we're going to be exploring. And Mars is going to really have us looking and trying to take action here on if we are drawn to arrogance and pushing our own agenda. So it's going to be this action that Mars being the planet of action, is going to want us to take, is to try and like establish adjustments in that behavior, in how we communicate, in our style of how we assert ourself and our truth. And this is that push of action. So the Mercury story is going to be about a lot to do with this, how we assert ourselves and how we can see this perception of more than one truth existing at once. And so this first part of the Mercury retrograde story, when it kicks off on the 25th, is going to start bringing up these ideas of, are we being too self-assertive and pushing our own agenda without looking into other people's truth, without acknowledging that more than one truth can exist at once? And then in that detail aspect, that's where we'll see this Mars in Sagittarius right towards the end of part 2 of the Mercury story, helping us to try and start making these adjustments so that when we roll into part 3, the cleanup stage, we can look back at the actions we've started to take and make any revisions if we need. Okay, now this is going to affect the mutable placements the most. So if you are Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, Venus, or Mars in Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces, this is where you will have the highest energy out of all of the signs, and you are likely to experience significant changes in your mindset, in your belief systems, and in your perspectives, okay? And you are really being given an opportunity to redefine your worldview and your life philosophy from a sense of your own values. And you're going to really be supported to stretch your mind and look at all of the dimensions here, okay? So if you look at your chart and see where you've got Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces. Now, there are a number of ways you can get super exact with the degrees that these aspects are happening. You can look at the aspects they have made to each other, like there's so many levels that you can look at in order to get some direction on where your Mercury retrograde story is taking place. And I find that very helpful. So do the people that I work with. We find that very helpful in order to sort of organize your thought patterns, because particularly this retrograde, because we are dealing with Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces as really a huge part of the story. That fog that gets created, that brain noise that gets created, just coming out of Scorpio, where we have uncovered all of these dark truths and dark secrets, it can be very overwhelming to actually see what the energy of Mercury is supporting you to do. So hit me up if you want a birth chart reading or just a short reading, which is one that I offer on like the current big movements. So this time around it will be Venus moving to Libra, Mercury moving to Sagittarius, and the Mercury retrograde story will be part of the shorter readings on your birth chart of what is being affected. Okay, and remembering here that we are also, as we move towards the end of the year, we are wrapping up Pluto in Capricorn, which is also about deep introspection and shadow work change. So there is a lot going on toward the end of the year, okay? And this is, of course, on top of everyone's holiday things that they are dealing with. So it can be quite a lot. So having a birth chart analysis and a universal energy guide can really help you go, oh, okay, so this is in my, fourth house of family and roots. So Christmas Day is going to be a bit of a time, okay? And you can really kind of work with the energy a little better when you know what parts are being activated, okay? So I don't know how people deal with these huge energy shifts without knowing these things, because it really is just ancient wisdom that everybody should know. So if you need some help, come and find me. Also, you can just get a little bit of assistance from my astro weather that I do on the weekly. You can just look up the chapter of the day that you need on YouTube as well. So just check that out, and you can really see what energy is moving, because as we move towards the end of the year, we are wrapping up a lot of cycles, a lot of energies are being wrapped up, and it's a lot going on. Particularly very recently in the last week, we've had a lot going on with that Scorpio new moon. So check out my Scorpio new moon video if you thought that you were losing your mind a little bit, because we all actually were losing our minds a little bit, okay? Particularly anyone who had any kind of moon or sun in Scorpio, we would have really felt those changes. Taurus as well, okay? So check out that video as well, and please like and subscribe, because it really helps me know what you are interested in, and I can put more of that content out. So that's all I've got for you with this Mercury and Sagittarius. My other piece of advice would just be aware of the sharp tongue nature of Sagittarius, okay? So it really makes us more open to sharing our truth. And with that Sagittarius fire energy, it's we don't, a lot of the time, we don't think of the goal at the end. We know there is one, but that Sagittarius energy is more concerned about the journey. And when we are dealing with Mercury in our communication, it can make us a little bit fire-tongued without caring about the opinions of others. And while that is fine to speak your truth, and while that is absolutely what we all should be doing, just be aware of that, because anyone with any kind of unevolved placements in Sagittarius, or anyone who is actively healing or avoiding healing, to be honest, you really could come up against some people who are trying to push your buttons. And so just be aware of that Mercury Sagittarius push for you to be fire-tongued too. And instead of doing that, you want to look at how and why you were triggered and work on yourself. Because remembering, we cannot force people to do what we believe the right thing to do is. We can only live our own truth. We can only look at the trigger as a little gift to how we can find the gold within that emotional reaction. So if you do want some astrological counseling, because none of that made any sense to you, again, that's something I offer and would be very happy to help with you. So hit me up on my website or in my email. My details are everywhere. And watch your tongue. Try not to be offended by anyone else's tongue. And let's really look into this idea of more than one truth can exist at one time. It's a very interesting concept that I have been working with for a long time, and I would advise you all to write it on your mirror, that more than one truth can exist at once, and really explore that when you are in your adventurous Sagittarius energy, okay? And until you see my face again, stay weird.